Tristan Wirfs' transition to the left side is going well. We tell you what that means for the Bucs as they get set for mandatory minicamp. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
Your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up and welcome in to the WTSP Wednesday episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. And don't forget, you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow us on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. And he is Evan Klosky at eKlosky WTSP. We are your hosts for WTSP Wednesday, covering your beloved Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You can find my work over at bucsnation.com, where I am the deputy editor. You can find Evan on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com. And for right now, we are here with you Monday, Wednesday, and Friday during the off season, along with our everydayers, our most dayers, and all the dayers in between. Evan, yeah, we have talked about this transition of Tristan Wirfs from the right side to the left side, talking about how that probably makes the most sense. That's probably what the Buccaneers are going to do. Maybe they draft a left tackle and Tristan stays on the right side. No, we were closer the first time. Tristan Wirfs told the media on Tuesday that he has been preparing himself for this move since the day after the season ended.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, he said he had a meeting with Coach Bowles, and he said that this is probably what they're going to do. So that's when Tristan started to work on it. But obviously, the first time he's really gotten to speak with the media, there are a lot of questions about how that transition from right to left is going. And Tristan said, quote, as good as it can. I'm just taking every day as an opportunity to keep getting better and to keep building that muscle memory over there. Going on to talk about the biggest difference between the right and the left side, he said, quote, everything. It's just everything is backwards. Getting used to throwing my left hand instead of my right and not throwing my right hand and opening up, or my weight distribution. I always used to keep my weight in my left leg. Now I want to keep it in my right. It's so similar. You're doing the same stuff. It's just all flipped. End quote. So that in and of itself, I believe, is really encouraging. We already knew that Tristan Wirfs, one of the best tackles in the NFL. Now moving him over to the left side, I've said if he's even 80% of what he was on the right, he's still a top 10 left tackle in the NFL. Regardless, it's going to be an upgrade over what they had last year. And kind of the trickle-down effect of all of this is some glowing remarks that we heard about Luke Goedeke going back to his natural position on the right side. So this move by Tristan, then you have Goedeke getting some really positive marks on the right side. How do you see this O-line playing out? I know you've talked about it's one of the deepest positions that they have, but there aren't too many like top tier guys outside of obviously Tristan and Ryan Jensen.
Yeah, I mean, first off, let me say this. We can look at how Luke Goedeke's doing once we see training camp and the pads come on, because I don't expect anyone to come out right now and be like, I don't know, Luke. You talking about Luke? He's doing okay. He's doing okay. So whatever. I mean, he looks strong and sturdy, and I'm sure he's more comfortable over there. So that, I think, was a huge issue for him last year. And it's funny. I mean, now Tristan's kind of going through the adjustment stuff. At least he's got a foundation underneath him versus a rookie having to adjust, going from right tackle to left guard. It was completely I think they threw a lot at him. And it just didn't work. You hope for the best and whatever. But Tristan, I thought, was very upfront, transparent, honest about where he stood at this left tackle position. And there's a part of me that thinks he's scared. Not in like a scared and like, oh my God, like I'm scared of my opponents that I'm going to face, but scared of not being the same dominant force that he was on the right side. And I think, he's doing a team-oriented move, and maybe he's just being extremely humble and trying to play it down. But when he's saying, man, I got, it's like everything's opposite, right? We heard at the beginning of the off season him talk about it's like wiping your butt and with a different hand. It's just everything's kind of flipped for him. He's a righty, and he had a go-to move. He's got to figure out a new go-to move. And while you say he's had the whole offseason to figure that out, really he's the first time we're going to understand what he's getting into is training camp and really getting those reps against his teammates with pads on and trying to figure things out. Now, he also mentioned the mid-zone scheme of Dave Canales and how it is so much simpler for him. He actually compared it to Andrew Whitworth and how he was able to play in the league for so long. He says that he doesn't really have to know exactly what the defense is doing at all times. A lot of it is read and react. If the rusher wants to stay on the outside, just kind of leave him out there and call good. So there's a lot of simplification in his position, which I think will allow him to be more successful in general and utilize his God-given talents as a freak athlete. But the tea leaves that I walked away with from that conversation is I'm going to try really damn hard to be the same dominant player that I was on the right side. And I just don't want you all to think like it's that simple. And so I'm curious to see what that means. Again, humble guy, love Tristan. I think he won the media award last year for just how upfront and honest he is. And I appreciate that so much, which is why I feel like we can read him a little bit better than some other athletes who kind of just throw us away when they answer questions and just kind of dodge it. And it's a whatever. So I appreciate the vulnerability a little bit. And in my opinion, he'll be just fine. That was just sort of my read on it.
Well, and he did equate it kind of like to riding a bicycle. He did play some left tackle at Iowa, and he mentioned that some of that muscle memory is starting to return. But yeah, you're 100% right. I'm sure there is a little bit of concern creeping in that, if he can't go out there and he can't dominate the way he did on the right side, well, now he's leaving his quarterback vulnerable. Now, his quarterback isn't Tom Brady anymore, but that still doesn't mean you want to, be the guy responsible for not getting the block that ended up causing Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask or even Rachaad White to end up getting injured because they just get absolutely blown up. So I'm sure it'll continue to improve. Of course, mandatory minicamp coming up, and then he'll have plenty of time in training camp to actually get some true, real reps and actually be able to get his hands on some guys, get comfortable, test some things out. And, if he's going to fail, that's where you want it to happen, is in training camp where they can't hit the quarterback. And now Tristan can go back and go, all right, this is what I did wrong. This is what I know I need to improve on. Somebody else that is fully aware of some improving that they need to do is Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who I have been extremely critical of, but he is well aware of his shortcomings and what he needs to do to make those better. That is coming up next on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Bucs is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They also fit way better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton, because Bird Dogs invented cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you get a slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Bird Dogs also uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. And the best part is the Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. I already own a pair of Bird Dog shorts, and I am really excited because 2 more pairs of shorts are on the way as golf season is starting to ramp up for me. So that anti-stink moisture wicking fabric is phenomenal out on the lakes. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL and enter promo code LockedOnNFL for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL for a free Yeti style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every single day. Everydayers, be sure to come back on Friday as David and I get you prepped for minicamp and all the drama that may ensue. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Evan, I feel he showed growth last year, but I also feel that he needs to learn how to finish. And I've said it time and time again, and he needs a big season this upcoming year to show he was worth that first round pick. He finished last year with 40 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and just 4 sacks. He had 4 sacks in his rookie season and started only 6 games compared to starting 16 for the Buccaneers last season. So I've been vocal about his lack of ability to finish, and he knows that that's something that he needs to improve on. On Tuesday, he was asked how he can finish his pass rush and get the quarterback on the ground. Tryon-Shoyinka said, it's just mental at that point. You've got to have the willpower to finish, and being in position isn't enough. You want to make those plays. You're going to rewind those plays that you missed every time and be sick, thinking about what could have been. At the end of the day, you've got to move on and try to improve, and that's all I'm going to do, end quote. Now, I'm not trying to sound the alarm. I'm not trying to say, oh no, it's Noah Spence all over again, because I feel that Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is a more athletic and better overall player than Noah Spence was. But this is a guy that you used a first round pick on. He's got 8 sacks in his career, between the 2 seasons, and he needs to take a big step forward. How do you see Joe Tryon-Shoyinka making that big leap forward? Obviously, having Shaq back is going to help, but this is a guy that it's a prove it or lose it kind of year for him.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned the rookie year and you mentioned last year. You say, oh, he played this many more games or this many more snaps and had like a similar production. But I think there's something to be said about that. Once Shaq went down, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka and Anthony Nelson were left out there to fry, man. I mean, they played nearly every damn down at that position. Like, if there's the defensive line is the one spot where you need to be rotated. You're bumping with the big and uglies up front. That wears on you. It's tough to be ultra productive from that spot unless you are elite. I mean, elite of the elite. So do I think Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is elite of the elite? No. Do I think he has to be? No. I want to know what he's going to do in a workload where it's 65 to 70% of snaps, something that we see kind of with Shaq. And I'm sure that Shaq is going to get eased into his snap count and eventually will progress to a higher number. And when you have him and Anthony Nelson and JTS all kind of working together, along with some other options who will filter in there here and there, you're getting good balance and you're keeping that speed. But yeah, I think there are some fundamental things that Joe needs to work on. I think he's aware of that, as you mentioned. But I do believe a healthier situation on the edges will help him out, because you just can't play that many snaps at that position. I know what your thoughts is, but I'm gonna pull up the snap count while you respond to that, just to even drive this point home a little bit more.
Yeah, the loss of Shaq, I mean, that hurt the defense across the board, and Anthony Nelson played well in spurts. Carl Nassib played well in spurts, but the most frustrating thing about having watched Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is that He has the speed. He has the athleticism. And at times he's had the power to get into that backfield without being able to finish it. It was like he would put some of these offensive linemen on skates, and then all of a sudden he got put on skates by an opposing quarterback. I truly believe that the return of Shaq is going to help bolster Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, especially for the attention that Shaq will get by opposing offensive coordinators in their blocking scheme and their game plan. At the same time, Shaq's coming off a pretty serious injury of his own. So offensive coordinators may not treat him the way that they would have this time last year. They may not treat him as the threat that he's been, because it's like, well, he's coming off an Achilles. Let's see what he can actually do, and we can still eliminate Joe Tryon-Shoyinka from this game. So there's a lot for JTS to improve upon, but I think he has the core abilities and the term that I'm looking for. He has all the attributes to be able to be that guy. We just need to see it from the mental standpoint.
6 of 18 games, he played more than 80% of snaps. In 3 games in a row, mind you, from week 15, 16, 17, he pretty much played 100% snaps. In week 17, he went 98%. So, I think he got exposed at some times, sort of run with your hair on fire, and he get burned on like an end around. One play that sticks out is sort of that Cleveland Browns touchdown to begin that game. Mm-hmm. They kind of did that, and Joe was wee. So there were some things he had to learn last year. It's tough to kind of learn on the fly like that once you get thrust into it. I think he was pretty well insulated. His rookie year was thrust into a bigger role. It's a little bit sink or swim, and he sank a little bit more than he swam. But I think that experience makes him pretty prepared for what's about to come this year. And let's see if the mental matches the physical. And if it does, we're probably talking about a dude who can have, 8 sacks, 6 to 8 sacks should be probably 6 should be like, bro, you got to hit 6 and then let's stack, right? I think that's fair.
Yeah, I agree completely. He probably, if you go back in and watch all the games, he probably left more sacks out on the field than he ended up finishing with. So I think 6 is a really good barometer, honestly. And he should hit 6. Everything on top of that is just gravy.
And if he finishes 4 plays, right? Talk about, how many snaps? He had 884 snaps. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you we can find 4 plays where he could have gotten a sack. And if he gets 4 of those plays out of 884 completed, our tenor on him completely changes. That's the difference, right? Like, bro, when it comes down to it, 4 plays. I need you to be better on 4 plays this year. And we're singing your praises.
We're talking about he's a double-digit sack guy this year. Look at how much he improved. Instead, we're talking about you have to improve now. It's going to be pretty dire if things don't get better from a finishing standpoint. Again, I think he can. It's just a matter of, as he himself pointed out, it's mental. So got to fix it. Jason Light said he's never missed on a player outside of above the shoulders. So the mental aspect of this game is grueling, and hopefully Joe Tryon-Shoyinka can get it together. The quarterback competition is not something that's going to go away anytime soon, or is it? That's coming up next here on Locked On Bucs. Wrapping things up here on a WTSB Wednesday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast, and both Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask finished OTAs with touchdown passes. Baker Mayfield throwing one to Mike Evans, Kyle Trask throwing one to Trey Palmer. Trey Palmer has been balling out. I think fans are going to start to get real excited about him. Proceed with caution. We have seen some OTA superstars. We have seen some training camp superstars. Just proceed with caution. But Trey Palmer seems like he's going to be a really solid threat for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But there's nothing like going out on a high note. It's still the OTAs. So my question to you, Evan Klosky of 10 Tampa Bay and 10tampabay.com, how can one of these guys get a stranglehold on the starting job in the upcoming mandatory minicamp, or is this going to have to be decided in August?
Yeah, it's not even going to be it's going to go deep. Dave Canales told us, I am going to take this QB competition as far as I can, and my goal would be by the end of the third preseason game, after that's all over, to name a starter and then prepare week 1 of the season with that man at the helm, and we enter a game week preparation. There is 0.0% chance anybody will do anything during mandatory minicamp to prove they are the starting quarterback. I don't care how bad one is, and I don't care how good one is. The only thing I would say is if Kyle Trask is leaps and bounds better than Baker Mayfield over the next 3 days of mandatory minicamp when they come up, next week, entering training camp, we'll be talking about maybe this is more of a battle than we thought. But right now, this is Baker's job. It's Baker's job to lose. And Baker doesn't have to do anything to really play above and beyond. He's got to be consistent and prove that he's not a detriment. Kyle needs to be superb. And that's the way that he's going to win this job. Because Kyle is, and I don't care what the organization says, it's a true battle, yada, yada, yada. Okay, it's Baker's job. And until Kyle forces you to say, you know what, like Russell Wilson, Matt Flynn, which, by the way, I believe, I don't know if Canales there for the start of that.
He was. Carroll was the head coach.
Yeah, but either way, I mean, super young. I mean, that must have been like his first or second year in the league. So, I mean, not that Canales had really a say in any of that, but at least he's seen it to where he saw the decision-making happen. But that's what you need. Like, some guy steps in and it's like, well, there's no doubt. No doubt. Russell Wilson is the best player. I don't care what we just signed Matt Flynn for. And that was actually a meteor contract and whatever you gave up Baker. So, there really is no detriment to going Kyle over Baker. But I don't care what you see. I really don't. And I don't even care what you see for the first few weeks of training camp. Preseason game, number 1, it's going to be a true audition. And that's what's going to be fun is like for the first time in a long time, Buccaneers fans actually have a reason to watch the preseason. We all do to an extent because we got to see these guys go to work and they got to prove themselves, and mostly Kyle has to prove that he is significantly better than Baker Mayfield. So that's not to say that Baker Mayfield starts week 1 and he's got a tight leash. Okay, that's he's not going to have all this runway, right? You can't in this position. But I do think that's where it stands, and I think we'll have highs and lows, and Trask will have a great week and Baker will have a great week, and we'll kind of go back and forth. But when the dust settles and we're getting ready for September 10th in Minneapolis, right here on 10 Tampa Bay in the Bay Area, watching that game, I do think it's going to be Baker Mayfield running on that field for the first time, taking snaps with the ones.
How important do you think the coaches – all right, let me rephrase. How much do you think the coaches take into consideration the rapport with the players? And by that, I mean, we could see that Baker in training camp, this is hypothetical. Everybody don't come yelling at me.
Yell at him. More of it.
We see that Baker is the better quarterback on the field. His timing's a little bit better. His accuracy's a little bit better. But the players respond better to Kyle Trask. If it's within spitting distance, is that kind of a tiebreaker, do you think, for Dave Canales to put the guy on the field that his players appear to respond better to rather than the guy that is actually more talented.
I don't know what you're trying to like get at here, because from everything I understand, like Baker, he's a awesome soundbite and a feisty little firecracker, but I don't see any way that Baker is falling out of favor with his teammates.
Oh, well, and I didn't mean falling out of favor by any means, but
that's what I'm saying is like that would have to be it, because I don't know how one can be a great quarterback without natural chemistry with your players. So I don't know how one would happen without the other, and I don't foresee one to happen, period. So to me, it's going to come down to who is the best player, and naturally the best player will have the best chemistry like that. I mean, those go hand in hand. I've never met a QB wide receiver combo that's thrown for more than 1,000 yards in a season together not have something together there. I would say the closest iteration of that, maybe Brady and Mike Evans last year, because boy, did that chemistry look way off. And somehow Evans still pulled it off because there were games where the chemistry was spot on. But yeah, I mean, look, right? We can build this. Let's say that Baker Mayfield crushes Kyle Trask in training camp. It's like there's no doubt that Baker's the best QB. What happens when he starts 1-3? What's everyone going to say? Where's Kyle? We want Kyle. And Bo's like, my ass is on the line. I got to do something. So, that's where we're going to have to kind of see where the wind blows. But especially considering Bowles is on a big time show me deal of like, hey, look, we've taken Brady out of here. We've taken Byron out of here. You've had all the say kind of this year. Last year, you really didn't. Last year, he was really restricted, I think. And I don't think fans give Bowles enough empathy, Bowles enough, what's the word I'm looking for? Leeway, maybe. Give him enough leeway for kind of having his hands tied in some parts of that team. This time around, I think it's got Bowles written all over it. And barring we just got Caleb Williams type season, I would imagine you're going to see Bowles kind of fight tooth and nail to keep this job at least another year.
Fair enough. Yeah, like I said, it was just kind of a fleeting thought that I had. I was like, well, you can get along with both guys, but maybe there's one that you like a little bit better, and if coaches take that into consideration or not. Yeah. And the only other thing that I could really think of in terms of the quarterback wide receiver combo without great chemistry probably be like Terrell Owens, Donovan McNabb. Maybe. Yeah,
but and then we go back to the fact that Terrell Owens was Terrell Owens, right? I mean, he was and
Randy Moss and Dante Culpepper there towards the end of their time in Minnesota.
And Randy Moss was Randy Moss. And it's
Randy Moss.
I mean, let's talk about the players on this team. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs. I mean, no ego. Russell Gage is a great guy too. I mean, really, we're dealing with a good group of guys. A successful bunch in the win column remains to be seen. But there aren't bad eggs out there. There aren't the Keyshawn Johnsons, let's say,
Chad
so
Johnsons.
Ocho Cinco / back to Johnson. So those are the things that we don't really have to worry about. I understand where you're coming from now, but that it just that personality trait ain't here.
Yeah, you're right. Again, it was a fleeting thought. Figured I'd throw it out there, see what you had to say about it.
Everyone out there, boo him. Boo!
Wow, that seems a bit extreme. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Bucs. Make sure you come back Friday as David and I will reunite and get you primed up and ready to go for a mandatory mini camp. In the meantime, if you've got questions, thoughts, ideas, criticisms for me, apparently that Evan is going to be rooting on,
send James a happy birthday. You're late, but send him a happy birthday.
Much appreciated. Yeah, you can drop those in the live chat, the YouTube comments, or you can email us at lockedonbuckspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every single day, for making us part of your day, part of your routine. If you have anything else, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or anything related to what you want to talk about, of course, you can find us on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs, at eCloskey, WTSP. And of course, David Harrison is at DHarrison82. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. We thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.